Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, 3 Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading 3 Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. We have a fabulous guest lined up, and that is Chana Studley. Chana is an author, speaker, and 3 Principles practitioner. She's also a World Health Organization psychological first responder and an Academy Award winner. Chana published her first novel, The Myth of Low Self-Esteem, at the beginning of this year, and she's just launched a new program to help people with chronic pain. After 3 violent muggings, 3 herniated discs, and a broken neck, Chana struggled with 20 years of chronic pain, which have all gone since coming across the understanding of the principles. Her research into the connection between chronic pain and the principles was presented at the 3P UK London conference, and she's now helping people heal from all kinds of physical problems with this understanding of the mind. After 30 years of coaching and counselling people with all kinds of trauma, addictions, and mental health issues, she trained at the One Thought Institute and now lives in Jerusalem. Hi, Chana. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh, this is great. So anyway, believe it or not, I just finished your book yesterday.
Oh, good timing.
Now, you know what? I took it away with me. I bought it and I took it away with me a while back and left it in the hotel room. But so I had to buy it again. I've been looking for it to finish rereading it. But it's a fabulous read. It's gripping.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful tale. So just tell us what led up to you writing that book. I know, but our listeners don't.
Well, people have been saying to me for a long time I should write a book, and I think a lot of people only knew about parts of my life. Like, people knew about my Hollywood background, and they said, wow, you've got so many amazing stories about that, you should write a book about it. Mm-hmm. And then people knew about my traumas and the things that happened to me when I was in my 20s, and they said, wow, you should write about that. And then I've traveled a lot, I've moved countries, continents, and people said, wow, you should write about that, so much transformation. Yeah. So I kind of thought, I need to put all this in one book. So it really isn't an autobiography, but once you kind of get to know me, you'll see that, you'll recognize about 85% of it is really my story. I just kind of turned it into some fiction that hopefully people, will find it interesting, an interesting vehicle to start understanding the principles.
Yeah. Well, you know what I loved about it? What I really got at the end was that it just was proof that the principles are always alive and well even before we come across them. Because so much of the book, you are really sort of, you know that in your being. Don't you? Talk about I know when you worked with certain people and they would have a lot of thinking, because you've been a counselor and for about 30 years now.
Yeah, I trained as a counselor in Manchester when I was a student, with the Manchester Rape Centre in the early 80s, which I didn't realize at the time how revolutionary it was. There weren't many centers like that at the time. The 80s was like the tail end of feminism, and these kind of centers were just setting up, and I was lucky enough to train with them. So following on from, I kind of had 2 careers. One was in the entertainment business, and in between theater jobs, movies, I would do counseling kind of work with all kinds of people. And I found through my own experiences trying to find out how my mind worked and how I was dealing with my issues, I started seeing, I knew I wasn't my thoughts. I knew I was torturing myself with my thoughts. I knew that a long, long time ago. I just thought the answer was to control the thoughts or think positive, or ignore your thoughts. There was a lot of effort and techniques, like a lot of people, we got stuck in the self-help aisle at the bookstore,
exactly.
and
bought it home with us.
Right. And, and this went on for a long time. So the book is kind of documenting that kind of evolution of trying to understand what was happening to me. And so I would try and help other people with my latest insight or my latest technique or my latest thing that I discovered. And so when I came across the principles, I mean, the best way I can describe it is finding a vocabulary to describe what I kind of knew in my heart. I didn't know what words to use.
Yeah,
so when I came across the principles and started listening to teachers on YouTube, I was like, yes, that's what I meant. Now I know how to verbalize it.
Yeah.
Which is, that's kind of how the evolution happened.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I know there's so many times when I've thought, I mean, I remember even in my teens going, God, I can talk myself into love and out of love, what I thought love was at that time. But I was very aware that my head had a lot to do with it. Right. And then my other famous line was, we're always making up shit. We might as well make up good shit. So, and that was before the principles. But yeah, you're right. The principles gives us a language to support what we've known all along. So tell people that don't know your story a little bit about what led you into working with people with trauma and physical pain, because you've had as I mentioned, I mean, you've had some pretty serious physical ailments to contend with over the years that were caused by trauma. So can you share a bit about that?
Yeah. In my early 20s, I was actually mugged 3 times. Being mugged once is bad enough, but 3 times. And each time it was, the first one, my skull was fractured. Like I have a lump right here. I know nobody can see it, but it's kind of like, when you tap a wall and it sounds a little bit different, that's where my skull was fractured. Wow. I was in a nightclub at a concert and some guy wanted to dance with me and I pushed him away. And the next thing I remember is his hand on the back of my head and he smashed my head into a concrete pillar. Wow. And I was unconscious only probably for a few minutes. But when I came to, I'd lost my eyesight and my head was a different shape, which is very alarming.
Yes.
And they rushed me off to the emergency room. This is in Manchester in the early 80s. And they actually had to put me in 4-point restraints on the x-ray table because I was so terrified and confused and I couldn't see. In an x-ray, they have to leave the room. So they had to tie me to the table, which that was like trauma after trauma. But I actually recovered from that one pretty easily. It was kind of, it was like, as a student, it's the kind of thing that happens. You fall over. Fracture your skull. So you should go back to class in a few weeks.
Yeah.
So I got over that one quite quickly. And then the second mugging was actually a real mugging. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening. It was the winter time in Manchester, so it was already cold and dark. And I was walking I just moved house. So I was just walking back to a friend's house to pick up some things. And I heard the sound of footsteps behind me. And 3 men came out of the dark, pulled me to the ground and beat the living daylights out of me. It was absolutely terrifying. I really thought I was going to die. I can remember feeling the air running out of my lungs and having this really clear thought, if I can't catch another breath, I'm going to die. Wow. If they have a knife, I'm going to die. And at the same time, I was having this out-of-body experience as if I was about 20 feet above me. It was almost like, imagine a cat stuck up in a tree looking down. Yeah. Like looking at something it doesn't understand. It was kind of like that. I was having all these experiences and it probably only lasted for, I don't know, a minute or so, but it was, the terror was unbelievable. They ran off and left me eventually. And as I looked up, there were some people walking by on the other side of the street and I'd been screaming for my life and those people hadn't stopped. Now, I actually don't blame them because, you hear stories about people getting hurt if they go and try and help. But it kind of compounded those feelings of isolation and terror. And a few days later, I tried to go tell the police, and the police were very dismissive of it too. They go, "Oh, we've got more important things to deal with," and I'm like, oh. So following that, it was about 1984, and PTSD had only just gone into the DSM, the directory of mental health diagnoses that psychiatrists and social workers use. So in Manchester in 1984, all I got was a cup of tea and good luck and go home.
Wow.
And so consequently, I got quite sick and strange after that one. And so when it came to about a year after that mugging, and I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I was having a really, really tough time. I decided that Manchester was clearly the problem and I should move to London. That was my bright idea. I think we call that a geographic now.
Exactly.
And so I moved down to London and I'd only been there about a year and I got mugged again.
Oh my God.
And the third time, a kid threw a bicycle at my head. He wanted to steal my bike that I was on at the time. So it was like bam! It was like being shot out of a cannon at a brick wall. The force was incredible. He knocked me into the path of oncoming traffic. I mean, how a car didn't run over my head, I don't know. Thank God. Wow. But he actually broke my neck. The C2 and C3, the most upper vertebrae were cracked through. Although I didn't know that at the time. I just lay there thinking, why me? Like, why would all these things keep happening to me? I couldn't understand it. Wow. And I got very sick and very strange after that one because, you know, I had evidence. You know, life is really dangerous and really scary. I had police reports and x-rays to prove it. And I got quite agoraphobic. I couldn't not only leave the apartment, I couldn't even leave my bedroom at the end. I was really, my world shrank to about 2 feet around me at the very end. And it was like, I couldn't imagine life without pain, and I couldn't remember what life was like before pain. Physical pain, emotional pain. It was just like it got pretty dark at the end, and so thank God that's when I started getting well. I had this kind of it sounds corny to call it an epiphany, but something kind of just the best way I can describe it is like, you know, maybe you've had this experience, Del, but like you've been using a hairdryer, you know, and it gets too hot and it just cuts out. Yeah. You know, ever had that? You know, like maybe in a hotel or something. Yeah. And that's kind of like what my brain did. It just like, I think it was burning so much with the speeded up thinking and the anxiety and the you know, all that aggression in my head, you know, stuck in that loop of reliving it, that it just like a fuse blew or something. I don't know how else to explain it. And I think it was like a blessing because I don't know that my brain could have taken much more. So everything just kind of went quiet, and that's when I started finally asking for help, and I got some amazing people in my life who really reached out and helped me, you know, to start understanding how much I'd gotten stuck in my own story. It was my own story that I was attached to. So that's kind of like what happened with me with the physical stuff. I actually didn't know my neck was broken until 2 years later. I was working on a movie in Australia, and I remember turning over in bed one night, and my chin got stuck down on my collarbone like this. It was agony. Wow. And I was like, I couldn't move. Like my whole body like just seized up. And we were out in the bush in a kind of like not middle of nowhere, but pretty remote area of Australia. And I had to like walk to the chiropractor like this. There was one in the next village. And luckily he had an x-ray, and he's like, stand up straight. I'm like, I can't. And he's like, because I was about to pass out with pain. It was like completely white. And he said to me, did you know your neck was broken? I'm like, no. And he was amazing. He got like full movement back in my neck. After he couldn't even touch me without me screaming at first. And then like he would do an adjustment every other day, and then it just was amazing how he got full movement back into my neck by the time we finished filming. And so for the next 20 or 25 years, I had like bouts of chronic pain. And I would get these, like my neck would feel like it had needed some WD-40, and it would get very stiff. And so I was seeing chiropractors everywhere I've lived. In England, in California, and here, I was always at the chiropractor because my back would go out. I would turn, like my back would like shift like this, and I get terrible sciatica pain shooting down my leg. I was rushed off to the emergency room several times of like passing out with pain at work, several times like paralyzed. I mean, thank God it was temporary, but when you're paralyzed, you don't know that it's temporary. That's really scary. Yeah.
So you had a lot of, I mean, you've had all these years of acute pain and constant symptoms from this. So I know that, you know, especially, I mean, you did that fabulous talk in the London conference about the connection between chronic pain and the principles. I mean, I know you were getting help along the way, chiropractic and things, but let's talk about what it is that you've discovered, because I know that you're really passionate about this, and you've got this program that you do now to help people deal with chronic pain through the principles. How is that different from what you were doing before?
Well, it's so, one of the many, many things I love about the principles is like, there's this whole untapped world of things that are going to come out that you can discover that you don't even know. If you'd asked me like even a year ago that I'd be working with people with chronic pain, I'm like, what are you talking about? I do trauma, or I do this, it's like, and so what actually happened was when I did the One Thought course with Aaron Turner in London, which is amazing, and signed up for the next one starting in September, that, I live in Jerusalem, so I had to fly backwards and forwards for the course. So, there was some expense involved. So I was kind of thinking, how can I save some money in my budget? And I looked around and I thought, I haven't had any pain for a while. This is, so maybe I'll cancel the chiropractor appointments. I had a standing, monthly appointment with her, and I would go more often when I had an episode. And so I finished the course. It's 6 months, and after I finished the course, I remember thinking, wow, I haven't had any pain in. Let me think. I haven't had any pain in about 3 or 4 years now, which is about the same time I've been around the principles at that point. So I was telling a friend about this, and she said, have you heard of Dr. Sarno? And I was like, no, who's that? And so, some of your listeners may have heard of him. He was an amazing rehabilitation medicine doctor at New York University Hospital. And he discovered back in the 70s and 80s the connection between state of mind and physical condition, primarily back pain. And he started noticing that most of his patients were that kind of polite kind of angry, we're not the kind of like, I'm going to scream and shout in your face kind of angry, because I'm a nice girl and I was brought up very nicely.
Yes, you were brought up in England, so.
Very, very English. But I'm going to take that frustration and anger and I'm going to keep it to myself. And, and, that energy is going somewhere. And so, for a lot of people, it goes into like back pain. And at first it didn't sit with me very well. I'm thinking, well, because I've heard people say like trauma's held in the body, and I've never quite understood what that means. I mean, is it in my elbow? Is it in my ear? What do you mean it's held in my body? It's never made sense to me. But the way Dr. Sarno explained it is that when the stress response is activated, it shoots all these survival chemicals into your body so you can run from danger, like cortisol and adrenaline and glucose. And one of the other things it does is it affects the blood flow. It moves blood into your big muscles so you can run and survive. So let's say I'm not running and surviving from a tiger or from a burning house. I'm just, stressed about something at work or a relationship or finances, could be anything. The blood's not flowing properly, so it's not taking enough oxygen to the muscles. And that's what's causing the pain.
Yeah. Wow.
So the pain is real, because sometimes when I talk to people about that, they think I'm saying they're making it up, like, oh, it's all in your head. No, the pain is real. It's agony. In fact, Dr. Sarno said it was one of the worst clinical pains he'd ever seen. So the pain is real, but it's coming from a very minor deprivation of oxygen in the blood system to the muscles. So I thought about that, and like Dr. Sarno goes off into kind of Freudian psychoanalysis of why, the understanding of why we're stressed. And I'm thinking, that is so last century. We have got a far more better understanding of how the mind works now. And I thought, isn't that interesting? My pain has gone away since I've been, had this amazing understanding of the principles. So I thought, I wonder if I could make reconnect that in other people. So I put an ad on my local Facebook group for anybody who would be willing to participate in a case study, a research program. And I obviously didn't talk about the principles. I just said, it was a new understanding of the mind, and it worked for me. Is anybody interested? And I got 30 replies in 2 days.
Wow.
Just from one little Facebook post. And people were like, sign me up. I don't care what it is. Just sign me up, Because when you've been in pain for a long time, and you've had surgery and you've done the chiropractor and you've done all these things and nothing's working, because there's actually nothing wrong, then people are desperate. And I chose 5 people primarily because their schedules fit with mine, because my program, I decided to do 10 hours with each person, which I didn't quite think that through, because times 5, that was 50 hours of my time I was giving to this. But I'm so glad I learned so much.
Yeah.
And they, they all had, it was very impactful on everybody, transformational for them and for me. one guy came. He was on something like 4 Percocet a day. He was down to half his medication by the end of our sessions, and he's still doing amazingly well. And another one was telling me how, she normally walks her dog because that helps her get out the house and some exercise. And she said like her back started to hurt as she's walking her dog, and the dog ran off. And then she said, the next day I realized I hadn't thought about my pain anymore. What are you doing to me? Like this. And then other people are saying that they're able to sleep better. And I was like, yes, it's working. Yes. So it was a great experience to see that. And so I've turned that evidence, into a program now that I'm launching. This is great timing because now I'm launching it this week.
Fabulous.
To help other people. And it's not just back pain, because what they found was it can be allergies, eczema, all kinds of stomach problems, migraines. When they come from stress, and you start to understand that, that's where the freedom comes, because we start to feel calmer, and the body gets to calm down. The stress response starts to calm. And so that's when the healing starts.
It's so interesting you should say that, because I know since I've come across the principles that I sleep better because I'm just more relaxed. And again, I don't think I can't remember even the last time I had a backache or anything like that. It's been years. And the same with headaches too. I don't get headaches near as much. Still have allergies, unfortunately. I've got to work on that one. But it is incredible, isn't it? Just simply by slowing down, just having more of a sort of a humorous relationship with our thinking rather than a stressed out, I can't believe I'm thinking this. But just taking everything so much lighter, it literally lightens your life up on every level.
Yeah. In fact, I had a really amazing experience with that. Just before I went to London for the conference, I was here teaching, and I suddenly had an asthma attack. Now, I haven't had asthma since I was in college, like in my 20s. So and it literally came out of nowhere. I'm sure there was something obviously triggered it. And I couldn't even breathe enough to finish a sentence. It was quite interesting. And it was funny, my students who were here learning with me, they were getting panicked. They were like, oh, what should we do? Should we take you to the emergency room? Do you have an inhaler? Let's Google something quick, do something. And it was interesting watching them panic. And I knew that if I stay calm, either it will pass or I'll know what to do. And it was so bad I couldn't even finish a sentence. I couldn't even take a sip of water to and I'm trying to relax. And I was sitting actually in this chair, and this is going to be very weird, but see how my hand's behind me? My hand's about 2 feet behind me right now.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. This thought went behind me. Now, I'm not saying this is a goal for anybody who's starting to understand the principle. You start having thoughts outside your head. This is just a weird thing that happens to me sometimes.
Yeah.
But this thought went by like this over here, and it said, oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't get worse, because it could spoil your trip to London. And I didn't have anything on it.
Yeah.
It just went by, and it just disappeared like some kind of steam train Harry Potter kind of thing off into the distance.
Through that wall.
Yeah, it went that way. Yeah. And it was like, it was so, because I couldn't breathe, and maybe it was the lack of oxygen. I don't know. Maybe that's why I started having this trippy thought. But it was so fascinating to me that the people in the room with me who were not in pain, or not everybody, they were panicking, and I was the one with the physical condition, and I was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay because I knew not to panic. Like that, my favorite Sid quote is, if only people learned not to be frightened of their own experience. That changed my world, because especially with asthma, like if I panicked, that would have made it worse. I would have ended up in the emergency room. God forbid.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was like, this thought was so innocent and neutral, like almost waiting for me to react, and it didn't react, so it just was able to just keep flowing like all other thoughts do.
Exactly. God, that's amazing. That's so
it was.
I've had those too, though. I hear things from outside of me. It's like,
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
no, it made complete sense to me. But you know what, Hannah, I can't believe this, but we're actually going to be coming, slowing down on our time here. We're coming to the end. So just share with our audience how people, because you do so many things. I know you're involved in so many things. Tell people how they can contact you and some of the things that you're doing right now.
Sure. So thanks. So I have a website. It's chanastudley.com, and Hannah spelled CHANASTUDLEY. So you can contact me through the website. So there's information about the Painless program is on there. So my book, that's on Amazon, The Myth of Low Self-Esteem. I'm already writing number 2, and I have ideas for 3 and 4, which is another amazing thing the principals have done for me. I had no idea I was a writer. And so like my mind is like bursting with all these new ideas for more books, because so many people have said to me that fiction, it was really helping them understand rather than another anecdotal book.
Yes.
Fiction is like a way of accessing that part of the mind that helps us understand things in a really cool way. And so LinkedIn, Facebook, I have a Facebook group. It's called Understanding Chronic Pain, Anxiety, and Trauma.
Wonderful.
And it's amazing. I'm having such a great time. People are now finding me on Facebook, just looking for groups on chronic pain or trauma, who know nothing about the principles, and they're coming, and several people now have said, I've sent them I always direct them to sidbanks.com, and they're like, wow, who is this guy? Or they come with problems, and I'm able to say maybe it's maybe it's thought, maybe, and people are getting attracted to the principles through this Facebook group, which is like I never imagined that would. It's such a privilege to be able to turn people on to these ideas. So so you can check that out. And there's lots of people from our community also. And please come and post things and help us, carry this message to people who are really searching. They're really suffering, and they're searching for answers. And we have so much to give them.
Oh, well, I can't thank you enough. I know it's late in Israel, so I really appreciate it. You can go to bed now. But this has been fabulous. I have to have you on again. This is just so lovely. I'd love to continue the conversation. So when you get your next book out, let's talk again.
Yeah.
All right. And thank you for thank you for everything you're doing in the world. It's just amazing, and so happy to see you happy and healthy and out of pain.
Right. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.